In emergency management, the definition of a stakeholder is any person or entity with a vested interest in the survival or recovery of a given community.
This is the Stakeholder Prepping podcast, where the tactical comes from the practical, and today, you become your own stakeholder.
Here are your hosts, Chris and AC.
Welcome back to Stakeholder Prepping, where you, yes, you are the stakeholder in your own survival. And AC, I'm super excited about today's episode. This is going to be so much fun.
This is going to be a fun one. I mean, we have a real expert in something we get asked about a lot, and so I'm really excited to bring on Branden Vaudreuil with Vodes Preparedness, who's going to talk to us about long-term storage food, freeze-dried food, and he's got an awesome startup company that I think he's going to tell us all about. So, yeah, Branden, thanks for showing up.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. How's it going?
Pleasure to have you. Yeah. So, for our audience who may not know you, can you kind of give us the 5 to 10 minute, Branden Vodes Preparedness story? Where did you come from?
Yeah, for sure. So I started Vodes Preparedness. It's kind of been, I don't know, like 3 years in the works at this point. With a lot of ups and downs, a lot of obstacles, a lot of challenges. But so I come from kind of a retail background. I had been in retail for the last 20 years, managing retail really for the last like 18 years. And so I think that kind of helped me, um, develop a business plan and that kind of thing. And I'd always wanted to start my own business. That was something I've kind of always wanted to do. And when COVID happened, that was kind of my gate into the preparedness community, I would say. And I've got 3 boys. I'm a single dad of 3 kids. So I've got, a lot to protect under me. So I kind of really got into that preparedness mindset during COVID. And unfortunately, that whole thing, I had a lot of time on my hands to watch different podcasts
Yeah.
and preparedness videos on YouTube and all kinds of stuff. So it kind of went down all these rabbit holes of that. And then, as far as the business goes, I guess it kind of just started as like, I didn't know intentions of doing freeze dried food as like a business. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Um, but I ended up, I don't know if you guys even have Fleet Farm where you're at, but this store had a sale on these freeze dryers, and it was just kind of a cool thing I'd been looking in, watching some videos on, and I'm sure everybody that knows freeze drying a little bit knows the freeze dried candy is kind of what the big thing in freeze drying.
Yeah.
And so, with my kids, we bought just a smaller freeze dryer just to have fun and do every kind of candy you could imagine and all that. And then kind of the more I got into it, uh, I started doing more food. Like we'd make dinner, and I'd make twice as much and then just freeze dry half of it. And so then I just started building a stockpile. And it just kind of built from there. And then the more research I did on that, the more I realized, boy, there is an opportunity in this industry for some competition. You got your big players in the industry like Mountain House, Augustin Farms, Nutristore, some of those. But there wasn't a ton of competition at the small tier level or even really the mid tier level. And so I kind of, I'm a math guy. I'm an Excel spreadsheets guy. I'm very much so it didn't take me long to kind of figure out what the costs of creating these products might be versus what I'm seeing them for sale at online. And the gap is humongous. So that's kind of where it started. So then in like 2023, I spent a couple years doing that. And then in 2023, I actually officially, I guess, got the LLC for the business.
Okay.
And then it went from there. So
That's cool. So I do want to dig into the science a bit because I think the biggest question that people have, at least from the outside looking in, people that just aren't aware in the industry, is the difference between dehydrating and freeze drying. Can you explain that a little bit? Because I just think a lot of people think it's kind of the same thing, and it's totally not, right? Like completely different.
Yeah, yeah. So dehydrating uses heat, and airflow, and so that reduces the moisture, but it can only get the moisture down to about 5 to 10%, um, which will give you a good shelf life. But of course, it doesn't give you that. When people think freeze dried meals, they're thinking that 25-year shelf life.
Right.
Where with with the dehydrator, yeah, it takes out some of the moisture, and but what also it does is it doesn't look the same. So it'll shrink the product. It'll look like beef jerky. When you put in beef and you dehydrate it, it's going to shrivel up a little bit. So it loses its form, and some of its nutrients in that way too. So freeze drying, what it does is does a process called sublimation. And so when you put in, let's just say, diced chicken is one of my products I do. When you put in your diced chicken, it freezes everything first to, I think I have it set to like negative 15 degrees or whatever. And so then it freezes, and all the ice crystals in it then get vacuumed through a vacuum chamber process called sublimation, pulled out of the product or out of the food, and it basically builds this ice dam around the outside of the freeze dryer. And so in that process, it's only pulling the moisture out through a vapor process. And so it doesn't go liquid, it goes straight to vapor. And it preserves all the nutrients basically. So they say about 97% of the nutrients are stay in the product. And then it looks exactly the same. So that's kind of the main difference. And then so the moisture content in a freeze dried food is, sub 1%, versus dehydrated, you're looking between 5 and 10%.
Oh,
And when
got
you
it.
get into the science of like where microbial bacteria can grow and stuff like that, that's where the longevity comes in.
That's where you get that 25-year, 30-year shelf life or whatever. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. So that's funny. That's like meteorology term, sublimation. It's the process of, you basically skip the water stage. You go straight from solid to gaseous. Do you know what the opposite of sublimation is? Deposition.
Okay.
Where you would go from this is meteorology all coming back to me. That's where you go from the gaseous state to the solid state, and you skip the middle one. But that's kind of cool. So that makes a lot of sense now why you get those 25 and 30-year shelf life stuff. So when you say 25 years, how do they do that? Is that like, how do they decide that, yeah, this is going to last 25 years? Is there accelerated life testing or something, or how do you do that?
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of it is that accelerated life testing. And they do have some of these companies have now been around, like Mountain House has been around for quite a while, where they've done some serious studies. And freeze drying has gone back much more than 25 years, certainly not to the advancements that it is now. But there are some studies that have been done post 25 years, but they do a fast aging process. I don't know exactly how they do all that, but certainly, you know, they basically, it's all time, temperature, humidity. So they basically accelerate all of that on a product and can tell, over a period of time, whatever that time is, that it would extend beyond that 25-year shelf life. Um, I had to send in some stuff for testing. I had to hire a lab. I hired out of Michigan State University, and they did some of that testing on my product as well. Um, and so it's pretty cool what they can do, but it's yeah, that accelerated life testing is kind of the way that they're using it for scientific support.
So when you have did you have like a couple of your original bags that you're saving for 25 years so you can open them up in a quarter of a century?
Yeah, I have a bunch. Yeah, so I've got the stuff that I yeah. Yeah, when I was starting in on this, I kinda built up a crazy, I bet you I had, 45-gallon buckets full of Mylar bags of food at one point. So, yeah, the stuff that I sent in was stuff from 3 or 4 years ago. Just I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna send stuff in that's at least like the oldest stuff that I have," and it passed all the flying colors. So
Cool.
That's really interesting. So for people listening, when they say that 25-year shelf life, what is the magic environmental place you want to store all of your food? Because there's got to be there's got to be a point when it's too cold and it's probably bad for it again, right? Is there, I've heard people say less than 70 degrees or less than 60 degrees. Is there like a magic place where you want to store food in general to get it to last that much longer?
Yeah, I mean, cool dry is obviously where you want to keep it, and moisture is the enemy. So I keep a small dehumidifier in my room with my freeze dried product. So that's a big one. But as far as you know, in sealed mylar bags is the most critical thing to have them in, and then between I've got some information on my website you can check out as far as storage guidelines go. But I would say probably between I wouldn't let it go between you know 50 and 75 degrees is I would say a pretty comfortable zone to keep it in. And you don't want to have those swings in temperature either. And what I like to do is I keep mine in mylar bags, and then I also keep those mylar bags heat seal with a sealer, and then also inside 5-gallon buckets with a gamma lid. And so it just gives you that extra layer of protection against not only heat and humidity, but also, external forces like bugs and that kind of stuff. So the more layers of protection, the better.
And we have both tried some of your Vodes Preparedness meals, and they were actually really good.
Really good.
Some of the best ones that I've ever had. And I had the breakfast bake.
Yeah,
Right?
breakfast bake.
It was
yeah.
really, really good. What I noticed is everything in there is already pre-cooked. I know with dehydrating, you can take some raw foods like beef strips for beef jerky or chicken strips for chicken jerky, things like that. But do you have to have everything cooked before you freeze dry, or can you freeze dry raw materials and then cook them as they're being reconstituted?
You can, yeah. There's when it comes to like a homeowner maybe wanting to do it on their own, yes, you can do it yourself. But I'm regulated by the USDA, and so there's a lot of regulations and rules on the things I do. I'm essentially treated exactly the same as like a giant Hormel plant. Um, and so for me personally, in being able to sell to the public, I have to do it as cooked. Otherwise, there are a lot of other guidelines to that. But no, you can freeze dry raw chicken, raw beef. I would just make sure that when you do that, 20 years from now, if you open that up, you know that this was uncooked, you know, meat, for example, so you don't get yourself sick. But yeah, there's nothing saying you can't. There are companies out there that do raw burger patties and stuff like that. It's just a personal preference for me and for the meals that I do, and a lot of the companies that do the meals. Um, you use boiling water in order to reconstitute and cook it, um, but it's not usually going to be enough to like fully cook chicken from a raw state, for example. Um, so that's the reason that I do it the way that I do it. But yeah, you absolutely can. You can freeze dry pretty much anything.
Interesting. So you've got just a couple of meals now, and I'll tell you the freeze dried biscuits and sausage gravy was amazing because that's like my Manchurian candidate food. Like all they're gonna do is look for somebody buying sausage, biscuits, and gravy and a Red Bull, and they'll be like, "We know where he is right now." But that was amazing. And yeah, Chris had that your breakfast bake, which I thought was pretty cool too. But your other one, did the freeze dried tater tot hot dish. I've never heard of that before. That sounds like something a single dad in his underwear made up. Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, well, that's probably true. Um, I'm not that single dad that made it up, unfortunately, but, yeah, in the Midwest here, I'm from Minnesota. Well, I'm from Wisconsin, but I live in Minnesota. So in the Midwest, tater tot hot dish is king, and so if you
That's a
haven't,
thing.
oh, yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, we have it probably once a week.
I had
It's,
no idea. I had no idea. It's like somebody was like, "Let's take tater tots and ground beef and some vegetables and soup." I didn't know it was like
yeah.
it's a Midwest thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's a
Oh, okay.
some people call it tater tot casserole, tater tot hot dish, whatever, but yeah, it's definitely a staple. If you ask anybody from the Midwest, they're gonna know what tater tot hot dish is, and they're
Oh yeah,
most
baby,
likely
go
not.
get your tater tot hot dish.
So that was kinda my flagship, like, you know, "I'm from Minnesota, this is what I make."
Okay.
This, it's kinda to appeal to but also to maybe introduce it to some folks like yourselves that maybe aren't familiar with it.
So not only are you providing long-term shelf-stable food storage for anybody who wants it, but a taste of the Midwest to anybody who's willing to purchase it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's great for. I mean, right now I'm marketing a lot to like deer hunters. It's huge deer hunting season right now in where I'm at. So, you're out in the stand and you're wanting a home cooked meal. Some tater tot hot dish is not so bad.
So is that forgive my ignorance here. So is that typically a dinner or a breakfast or like a lunch meal?
More of a dinner. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So that's kind of what I did. So like the biscuits and gravy, I guess could go either way. Um, the breakfast bake is obviously a breakfast type thing, and then biscuits and gravy more of a lunch, and then tater tot hot just more of a dinner. That way, when I launched with kind of like an all three, uh,
Okay.
meal solution, I guess you could say.
That makes sense. And then you also have some bulk freeze dried stuff you're selling as well, right?
Yeah, yep. So I do bulk freeze dried diced chicken breast cooked, and then same with the ground beef. And so that's really where the meals are hard to get, hyper competitive with as far as pricing goes, because they're already, at a $10 price point. But the proteins are where I am able to make a huge difference in the industry. When you look at the competition, like Mountain House, for example, sells a 17-ounce can of chicken breast, and they're selling it for 90 some dollars on their website. Well, I'm selling 20 ounces, so 3 more ounces for $50 online.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, that's really where the mindset of, wow, I mean, there's a huge hole in this industry to be able to save people money. Like, I wanna be able to get more people into preparedness, and so that was part of it too is, how can I make a difference in this niche of preparedness? I think I can make it more affordable for more people.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you said that you're held to really like the same standards as Hormel or Mountain House or some of those bigger companies. I mean, when we talk about like the specific science behind, say, the water content, I know you said below 1%, but how dry is dry? I mean, is there like a measurable percentage you aim for before you start packaging, or how does all of that work? Where do your standards actually fall?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And so I've learned a ton over the last. So working with the USDA, I mean, for one, in Minnesota, I'm the first commercially licensed freeze dryer in the state, and so they learned a ton alongside me. So that's what kind of made this process so challenging. And so the moisture, the water content, the moisture content is the most important thing by a mile. And so the FDA requires that any freeze dried food must be under a 0.92% moisture or water activity. And the reason for that is the microbial bacteria cannot grow below that 0.92%. So for every business, like I said, I'm compared to like Hormel or all these other companies, I have a USDA inspector in my facility every single day. And so they have to be there to inspect my product, my process, and my most important, my HACCP plan, my hazard analysis and critical control point plan. And so in that plan, I could have put, you know, I will take my product out at 0.92% water activity, which I have a meter that I test everything with. But my HACCP plan, I put in that I will not take anything out under or over 0.4%. So over halved that. And then on top of that, I don't take any protein, so the chicken or the beef or ham or sausage, out of my freeze dryers until they're under 0.2%. So I'm
Wow.
technically 4 times lower than the required by the FDA. And then that doesn't affect the taste or the quality or the longevity or the nutrition or anything. It's just taking out that little bit longer. So it does take a little bit longer, but I make sure that it's 4 times the required amount, 4 times less of the required amount of water activity.
Wow.
So
So
there's no chance whatsoever that microbial bacteria can grow.
yeah, so that's where you're saying water's kind of the enemy when it comes to that microbial growth. So is there a chance that all of your meals could last longer than 25 years at that point?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, they could last indefinitely. There some of these some of those accelerated tests have shown a little bit of degradation in like the quality as far as taste goes. But as far as safety, food safety goes, none at all. So,
Oh,
technically they could last basically indefinitely, but that standard of 25 to 30 years is, 20 to 30 years is pretty standard. Now that does some of that is affected by obviously what kind of product you do too. So anything with the higher fat content tends to be much harder to get down below that 0.2% that I do. Things like you don't see a lot of chocolate or you don't see a lot of bacon, that kind of stuff. Stuff that's really high fat content. You can do it, but it's extremely time consuming and it's just not as it's a little bit more risky.
got it.
Okay.
So it's those oils are the enemy
Yes.
of a dehydrator or a freeze dryer.
Very cool. That's the science behind this has got me just like hyper focused. This is so neat to me to learn all of this. So I do want to kind of talk about what it means for preparedness, what you're doing. And when you think about kind of that long term food security, say for a family preparing for power outages or natural disasters, or, yeah, I mean, even an economic downturn, where does that freeze drying fit in? Where would you put, if this is looking at all of your assets, how much would you put in food security versus other resources for preppers?
Yeah, I mean, your most important thing is water. Obviously, figure out a way to have safe and clean water, and then it's really food. Um, I always tell people, start with the rice and beans, start with the essentials, some canned goods, that kind of stuff. It's cheap, easy to stockpile. Make sure it's stored properly, and that's where I like the 5-gallon food safe buckets with the gamma lids. So I always tell people start with that, and then when it comes to freeze dried food, I think the way that I approached it before I even bought a freeze dryer and I got into prepping is I kind of set a little bit of aside every month or every couple weeks when I got paid of like, here's the, $50 every couple weeks I'm going to put into, future preparedness type stuff. And that budget can be different for everybody, but and that might be this week I buy a couple freeze dried meals. And then next week I buy, you know, some fire making material or like fire starter, stuff like that. I suggest that everybody should have at least a few freeze dried meals per person in your family. Not so much, that's not going to get you through the long haul, but it will get you through that potential power outage. You might have a 2, 3 day power outage, which could be pretty catastrophic. And, you're not able to use your oven. You're not able to use your microwave. Your fridge goes down. The shelf stability of the freeze dried product of not having to have it, in a freezer or a fridge is extremely useful in those situations. So, investing in maybe 3, 4, or 5 bags per person in your family is certainly a good way to go. And then, if you have the budget to do it, um, and can afford to buy a freeze dryer, I do think it can be a really good investment for people. If you especially if you do a lot of your own, like, gardening or, um, you do a lot of meal prepping, that kinda stuff, you can build up a stockpile pretty quick. Now, on the same hand, it's an expensive investment, you're talking a couple $1,000 at least to get started. Um, Plus, it uses a lot of electricity, which is just something I think people don't think about a lot. And then, I've seen a lot of people buy the freeze dryers thinking they're going to do a lot with it, and then they end up on Facebook Marketplace. So if you go, if you go on, there's a lot of regret freeze dryers on Marketplace. So that's another thing too, is if you're looking for a deal on a freeze dryer, that's a
Funny.
good place to go. Is check the secondary hand market. And but if you can, it's a great opportunity to build that long term storage on your own. You have that ability to do whatever you want to do. So if you really love these meals and you want to make, at 4 times that amount when you make dinner for your family, that's awesome. You just freeze dry off the rest of it. Um, and but I've definitely seen a lot of people, and I have friends and family that have gotten into it a little bit, and then, you're really into it for like a month or two, and then it kind of falls off, and then it's giant box sitting in the corner somewhere that's taking up space. And but yeah, I mean, if you can invest in it and it's something that you think you're going to use, I think you can get a used one probably for about 1,500 to 2,000.
That's
So
not terrible.
no, so for people that want to invest in one, like what are the mistakes you're going to make? What like is there a size or a brand that you would recommend for people to really get started with?
I only have experience with Harvest Right. I know there's a company called Blue Alpine that is kind of up and coming. I've been hearing a lot about them. They're built and made in Idaho. And I'm probably going to check them out here soon, but not no no sponsorship with them. I just I've been hearing good things. As far as Harvest Right goes, they're pretty solid machines. For any just like standard family or single person, even a small machine can do 5 what is it, maybe between 5 and 10 pounds of food at a time, and then they make up to an extra large and then commercial, like, my extra largest can do 50 to 60 pounds at a time, and that's fresh food weight, um, and it just kinda depends on what you're looking to do and how much you think you're gonna do, but I think, starting with a small one is always good, either a small or a medium, especially if you can find a good deal on one. There's deals on them all the time, and then just work your way up from there.
And do
That's
they
what
do they last a long time? I don't know what's in there. It's not a
Yeah,
heating element. I don't really know what's in there. What's the part that's going to go bad? Have you actually broken a freeze dryer yet?
I have. Yeah. So funny you ask, actually very recently here. The main thing is the pumps. So the pump isn't what I broke, but you have to do regular oil changes on them. Now the new pumps, like if you buy a newer Harvest Right, for example, you only have to do an oil change about every 20 batches or so. Um, and that's super simple. They literally come with what looks like a water pitcher, and you can filter the oil and reuse it, at least a couple times. And then you can buy new oil, which is cheap. So that's really the only maintenance piece of it, other than the cleanliness and sanitation. Um, but for me, it was the compressor. We thought it might have been a switchboard thing, but unfortunately, one of the compressors failed. But Harvest Right has a really good, um, again, no affiliation with Harvest Right, but they have a really good warranty. And so I have there's 3-year warranty on the compressor. And so for me, that's all covered, which is great. But obviously, it's kind of stinks when it goes down.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So when you said doing whatever 60 pounds worth of food, let's say a protein like a chicken or a beef or something, what is that 60 pounds? What kind of weight does that turn into when it's done?
Yeah. So for me, because I take it down to a 0.2%, so it's about 6 to 6.5 pounds of fresh. So cooked chicken breast, for example, about 6 to 6.5 pounds of cooked fresh chicken breast equals about 20 ounce, my 20-ounce bag of chicken breast that I sell.
Wow.
So I guess you could do whatever that is.
For 20 ounces, you're getting 6 pounds of chicken.
Mm-hmm.
That's for 50 bucks. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing value.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're comparing it to chicken breast bought from the store, that's buying fresh. You're paying for the process and the longevity. But yeah, as compared to like some of the other players in the market, yeah, that's a huge savings.
So when you open one, let's say I buy your big bulk bag of chicken and I open that because I'm just using whatever, a cup of that stuff. How long is that going to last once I've opened that product?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have them in my pantry at all times that I'm using them, and so once you open a bag, you've got between 3 and 4 weeks to use it. Um, Again, as long as you keep it in a cool, dry place, you keep it zipper sealed. That's the nice thing about my bags is they come with the zipper seal in them. So you can reuse them and keep them in your pantry, and it is awfully handy to be able to just pull a bag of meat out of the pantry and just heat it up.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So would you recommend people if they're going to buy this in bulk from you maybe and try to use it as they go, does vacuum sealing it after the fact, does that help or make a difference?
Um, I suppose it probably could. I don't know that it will make that much of a difference because all the moisture has been taken out of it. Um, it certainly wouldn't hurt, but I don't know that it's a necessity. Especially because once you open it, you have broken that heat seal on it, so you're not gonna get that 20-year longevity then. So but once you open a bag, 4 weeks to use that bag is a pretty long time, and you can use it in a lot of different meals or, preparing different hot dishes or whatever you wanna do with it. Make chicken salads. I use mine a lot for especially the chicken. I'll just make I just put out a bowl of water, pour a cup of chicken in it, let it hydrate for a few minutes, and then boom, I've got chicken to put on a salad.
Yeah,
Very
sure.
nice.
That makes sense because yeah, if you open it, then sure, maybe we're just having all chicken dishes for this week or something. Like you could plow through that pretty quick if you want to.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what about eating? I know with like freeze dried candy, and I've seen freeze dried Skittles and Sweet Tarts and things like that on the shelves at Walmart. They're selling those very commercially now. Uh, but what about eating, you know, the hot bake or the breakfast bake? What about eating that just straight out of the package without cooking it or without reconstituting it with boiling water? Would you recommend that? Obviously, it's going to change the flavor, but what does that do to it nutritionally or once you swallow it?
Like if you're just gonna eat the dry
Right.
product out of the bag. I mean, it probably won't be the most pleasant eating experience just because it's super dry. But if you love crunchy food, I mean, as far as nutrition goes, it's fine. Like I'll pop, a piece of chicken or beef, and your mouth will rehydrate it to some degree. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you could. As far as nutritional value go, it doesn't affect any nutritional value whatsoever. So if you're out in the woods and it's a survival type situation and you don't have a way to make boiling water, could you eat it? I guess is essentially what you're saying, and it would be nutritional? Absolutely.
So it's kind of like an MRE. It's better if you take the time to cook it, but you don't necessarily have to.
For sure. Yep.
So
Excellent.
you've got, like I said, there's the 3 meals and some bulk. And by the way, all the meals, I mean, I think the lowest one is like 28 grams of protein per bag. And these bags are small for people who haven't seen them compared to a mountain house. There's more in them, but it's a smaller sort of squattier bag. I actually really do like your packaging. But do you have what's the next thing you want to do? Is there another meal coming? What's the next stuff you'd like to get into after these three?
Yeah, I've actually got 3 meals I'll be launching here, hopefully within the next month. Again, that's a process to get everything approved and whatnot, but yeah, I'm gonna be doing a buffalo chicken mac and cheese for sure. That's one
Ooh,
of my
Oh,
favorites.
I'm in.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'll tell you, I actually eat some of them just for lunches sometimes because I don't know, because I'm lazy sometimes. I don't wanna make any. But yeah, the buffalo chicken mac and cheese is gonna be a big one. And then I haven't finalized exactly what the recipe is gonna be, but there's a rice, and broccoli chicken type one that I'm working on. I've got a lot of people that have requested me make like some kind of like a Korean dish or like a faux dish or something like that. I don't know a lot about that industry.
Oh, you're talking my
I'll
language
learn.
now, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I I would love to, and I'm playing with recipes all the time, just to kinda see what I can make, and so there'll be some other ones too. Beef stroganoff is one that I'm kinda working on right now. So I'm trying to mix it between, like, staples and then things that, uh, might be new to people that they've never tried, like the tater tot hot dish. And
Yeah,
then the
trying
other
to
thing
stay
I'll be
different,
launching is
right?
a dessert. So,
okay.
yeah, it'll be strawberry cheesecake bites coming, so keep an eye out for
Nice.
that.
I was gonna say, do you have a background in, cooking and chefery, or did you just sorta wing this?
Not really. I mean, I love cooking and I do a lot, but this has kinda opened up that door for me a little bit to be able to play a little bit and test some new things and get into it, and the cooking part wasn't something I was super interested in at first, but it's kind of become something that's really grown on me and that I enjoy doing. I've got my own little space in my nice commercial kitchen, and I'm there by myself, and I'm just playing with things and making making recipes and documenting what I'm doing, and it's really fun actually. So, throw on a podcast like you guys or something, and then just plug away.
And when you start making dishes specifically for freeze drying, is there a different flavor palette that you need to aim for? Like, they're usually pretty salty. Are they salty on purpose? Are they salty because they have to be? Or, and I'm not talking about yours, I'm talking about like just industry in general. When I go backpacking and grab some Mountain House, they always just tend to be very, salty noodles. Is that normal because of the way that process happens? Or, is there something you aim to or you aim for when you're cooking them that you wouldn't when you're just cooking like a fresh dish?
Not necessarily. In fact, I've the feedback that I've gotten, over the last year while I've been doing these is that I didn't add enough salt.
Okay.
So like the clear to hot dish, for example, I did up that a little bit, because I don't know, I guess back to that specific dish, whenever I make it at home, I always put salt and pepper on it, but I didn't put that in initially. So that was something that I got feedback on. So no, I don't know that it has a ton to do with like the preservation aspect of it or anything. Um, I think salt's just pretty common to put in a lot of those type of meals.
So you kind of have to make it a dish for everybody, including Brits who they were
Sure.
great at stealing spices from all over the planet, but they don't know
There
how to
go
use
our
them.
UK listeners gone. Thanks, Chris. They're done.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll tell
um,
you, I love Tabasco sauce, and that's kinda like one of my go-tos on it, so, like, the times I've been out and eaten them out and, you know, camping or whatever, I always have a little bottle of Tabasco sauce that I like, you know. So if you're a survivalist, maybe keep one of those on you.
Now, how hard would it be to add in? This was something that my wife and I noticed. One, the portion sizes are massive. We both were able to share one of those meals, and we still had a little bit left over for breakfast. It was you could survive off of these. There is no doubt about that. The calorie content is there. Um, have you thought about adding in like a salt and pepper packet into each one?
I have thought about that, yeah, that is something I've actually thought about pretty fairly recently. I haven't brought it up to, like, my inspector to find out what the process is to get that done, but that is something that I will be looking into. I think that would be very beneficial. Um,
I'd say
but the
that
other
that would
thing.
be something people aren't doing. All the other guys that I've seen out there, there's definitely no little condiment pack in there, but
Right, right. Yeah,
there's a
you
little
just have your
oxygen
oxygen
absorber, so
absorber.
I guess you could.
Right, yeah, and I don't see why there wouldn't be an ability to have the longevity on the salt and pepper, but, um, yeah, that's something I'll look into for sure. But one of the things that I do, and I think a lot of the freeze dryers do as well, is everything is done individually per ingredient. So, for example, with the tater tot hot dish, I don't just some people might think, "Oh, you just make a tater tot hot dish and then portion it out on these trays and freeze dry it." That's not I did do that, and it does taste good, it just looks ridiculous. So, it just doesn't look appealing at all. So, everything that I do as individual ingredients. So, like, I'll freeze dry the tater tots as their own. So then the other thing is I can kinda season each thing individually if I want to. And right now I don't season the chicken or the beef, for example, but, um, I do some with the tater tots and, a couple other things. But yeah, so to do them each as individual ingredients, then I can get the portions to be exact or pretty close to exact in each bag. So you know you're gonna get the same amount of sausage and ham in your breakfast bake as when you buy it now or versus when you buy it, 6 months from now.
I didn't
That
even
makes
think
sense.
about that. That's crazy. So you're not making that dish. You're individually freeze drying every one of those ingredients and then making it as a freeze dried dish.
Correct. Yep.
Wow. Okay. I had no idea. Yeah, I actually was going to ask a question about that. Is how do you know if you're getting more sausage in one bag and more biscuits in the other bag? Because you are literally making a freeze dried meal out of freeze dried ingredients in every single bag.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
It's interesting.
That's kinda cool. I can understand why it's so labor intensive, and you're obviously very passionate about this. Like, it not only saving people money, but the quality of the food that you're putting out is just truly impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like. I'm not about all these preservatives and all this other nonsense. The preservative is the freeze drying process, and so I'm not out here putting a bunch of random stuff in my bags of food. It's ground beef. It's you know hash browns. It's raw ingredients. I buy the raw ingredients and cook them and or prep them, and that's all that goes in.
So I am a big soup fan. I know we touched on that a little bit, like doing like a Vietnamese or a Korean soup of some kind. And I know a lot of people say it robs you of a meal. I don't necessarily agree with that. I'll have pho every day. And but when you're talking about that, like individual ingredients to make a soup, that seems kind of impossible. I don't know because like, are you making a broth and freeze drying it, or would you add all those ingredients and then would that reconstitute as the broth that it needs to be? That's kind of a weird one.
So you can do it a couple different ways. The way I've done a lot of soups, and that is something I'm looking into is doing some soup, even if it's just like a chicken wild rice soup or chicken noodle. But um, you can literally make, so that's a situation where I would make all of the soup, like, as a whole batch probably, and then I would strain out all of the the liquid, freeze dry that liquid, and it'll turn it into a powder, and then that's where you have to play with the calculations of how much water do you need to reconstitute it to be the same as it would have been, um, because, yeah, you can freeze dry anything. The liquid just takes an eternity to freeze dry. If you're doing like batches of liquid, like I've done milk, I've done, you know, anything with super high water content just takes, it can be done. It does it well. It just takes a long time. So yeah, you can do it that way. You can also, I mean, you could, depending on what ingredients you use, you could a lot of the, like in my buffalo chicken one I'm doing, I actually use French red hot seasoning as part of that ingredient list. So it's already freeze dried essentially as a powder. Um, or it's not freeze dried, but it is a powder that is considered that same consistency. So it just kind of depends on how you want to do it. But it can be
That's
done to the exact specifications that you would have made it on the stove.
so it sounds like there's probably a lot of trial and error in your kitchen. Is that how often are you just making stuff and then tossing it, saying, "Nope, this just isn't good enough for me."
Yeah, I mean, I don't toss it. I'll eat it. But but yeah, a lot of trial and error for sure. You know, especially I took a long time to get the recipes right. Probably went through, I don't know, a dozen different. The only one that came together really easily was the breakfast one. For some reason, that one came together pretty quickly. But the tater tot hot dish one, I had to play with a ton. Um, and mostly just for the gravy part of it. So like, it's not so much the ingredients of like the tater tots and the mixed vegetables and the ground beef. That stuff's easy. It's the getting the consistency of the hot dish part of it, like the cream soup part of it, the water to a lot of it I would make, and it would be, like, way too salty to your guys's, because you're making this batch of freeze drying. Once it freeze dries down, it becomes basically like a salty mixture. If you don't mix the right amount of water and milk or whatever into it, it just doesn't taste right, and so, yeah, a ton of trial and error.
Gotcha.
Just
Yeah,
until it
I can
tastes
definitely
great and
see
your
that.
friends don't I have great friends that will tell me it sucks, and so if it sucks,
You
they'll
gotta
tell me and I'll
you
be like,
gotta have
"Alright, back to
those
the drawing board."
friends. Actually, Chris and I have a couple of those friends with the podcast where they're just like, "Hey, man, you gotta work on this. Your audio sucks."
Yep,
Like
yep.
it's good to have those people that aren't just bumbling yes men in your circle. So that's
Yeah.
good that you've got those people that'll be honest with you about
Yeah, I've got 2
about
in
what you're
particular that are, shout out James and Phil.
doing.
And how many meals would you say you actually produce per month for shipping all over the country or the world?
Well, we just launched last month at the beginning of September, so obviously ramping up and that's the other beautiful thing about freeze-dried food. I mean, with the shelf stability of it, I'm not slowing down at all. Like, I'm just producing every day, whether it sells or not, I'm selling, but, I can produce, I probably bag, depending on which product I'm doing for the day, like, if I'm doing one of the meals, I can package 30 to 40 of them in a day. So, and
Yeah.
I have capacity to do more than that, but right now I haven't had to do more than that. So as
And
it scales, I'll continue to
this
do
is
more.
brand new. I mean, this is really cool. This is like ground floor, brand new. Here you are, starting out with the three meals and the two big bulk dishes. But that's really cool that this is brand new because we're talking about a product that could be like the Mountain House or the I know there's a ton of these other brands. That's the one I know. That's the one you
They
see
are
on
the
the shelf every.
Goliath of the industry for sure. Yeah, they are
They
the
are
absolute
right.
granddaddy of them all. But
Yeah. And I
So I
think they're
want
the only ones not in Utah. I think they're the only ones that aren't in Utah. I think Mountain House is actually in Oregon.
okay.
Yeah, and all the rest of them it's all Utah, every one of them.
Yeah, there's a few I know I've heard in Utah, but yeah. There's not a lot of big brands though.
I have a question about like cost per calorie comparing yours to Mountain House or Alpine or some of the other bigger brands.
Mhm.
When when we look at one of the nutrition facts on one of your packages, I mean, it is over 1,500 calories, but cheaper than less calories in a Mountain House one. How do you do that? Where's your cost per calorie come in comparatively?
Yeah, I don't do cost per calorie so much, but as cost per ounce. I guess I probably could and should break it down by calorie. But as far as per ounce though, it's my servings are 2.5 servings per meal. Where so all three of the meals I have now, and I think I'll probably maintain that same size, is a 5-ounce bag. But if you look at like Mountain House or Backpackers Pantry, any of them, if you look, they're like 4.2, 4.1, 3.9. So they're not as heavy as far as the amount of product that they have. So mine are a little bit more calorie dense. So you're going to get significantly more calories per dollar for sure. Um, and it's just a matter of, for me, I don't have the overhead that a lot of these companies have. And so I'm able to, I guess I didn't even really talk about the business where we're at, but like, so I bought out a church. So I bought a 100-year-old church. It'll be 100-year-old next month.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so it built in 1925, and so I bought it specifically for this business, uh, to build this business in it because it had like a big kitchen in the basement. Um, and there's some USDA regulations on it has to have its own separate entrance and exit, has to have a restroom attached to it, etc. And so it had all of that, and so that fit all of the needs I needed there, and then the rest of it I built into my house. So, I've actually converted this entire big church into my home, and then I've got the business within it, which is a whole 'nother that's another thing that made this whole process a unique and challenging process to work through. Um, but by doing that, it's just funny, I pay less per month for this entire place than I did for my home previous to this, and I have my business within the property. So, um, but it, like I said, it's still I have a USDA inspector in my facility 5 days a week. I'm fully regulated, all my licenses and everything. So it just happened to work out that way. But by having that, I'm able to keep that overhead super low, and then I don't have to produce in these gigantic batches. I produce every day, and I'm producing what I feel is necessary every day, and I have the ability to scale. But that allows me to keep that cost per ounce so low. And that's kind of when I look at like the competition online and I look at the cost per ounce. You're talking like for the chicken, I'm at like $2 per ounce for my freeze dried chicken, whereas the competition's at like $4, $5 per ounce. I mean, some of it's a 60% savings.
Jeez.
Wow, that's
And I'm still,
crazy.
and I'm not looking to become a rich person off of doing this. That
Sure.
isn't my goal. My goal is to be able to, maintain my family, obviously, but then to be able to provide in the preparedness community for people that maybe couldn't, it was out of reach for them.
That's awesome. So are you really is it a one-man show right now as far as are you making it and bagging it? Are you getting the kids over there with some forced child labor or what's going on?
It is a one-man show right now. I've got 3 boys. They're, almost 16, 13, and 10. So, they are semi interested, we'll say, but eventually they'll work and, be involved in the business a little bit more. But right now, while I'm ramping it up, it's been a one man show. I literally built the kitchen myself, everything. Besides the plumbing, I wasn't allowed to do myself, but everything else I've done myself. Um, it's just, yeah, it has been a crazy journey. I wish I didn't do it all myself sometimes, but I did, and it took a lot longer than I would have liked. But here we are. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's awesome. I mean, this is a great entrepreneurial story as well, and it happens to be in our preparedness community. So I really do like that. That's amazing. And I think, Chris, we have actually a really big announcement here with Branden and Vodes. Do you want to take that away?
Yeah, so you're all about saving people money, and we had kind of talked this over. You're going to give us an affiliate code or a discount code for all of our listeners. What is that code going to be?
Yeah, it's live at the time you guys will hear this podcast. It's Stakeholder 15. You get 15% off anything on the website, um, any combination of anything, any single product, and then free shipping over $75. Yeah. So, and I've already got everything on sale already because we just launched. So it's 15% off on top of all the sales that are going on right now too. So
I
yeah, it's a
saw
great
that.
opportunity
I,
to
I
check
saw
it
that.
out.
I went down and I was gonna buy some myself, and I looked, and yeah, you can get your 3 meals all together at a discount, and then our code still works, and then free shipping on top of that. So this was amazing because we've had a lot of our listeners ask us about long-term food and who we'd recommend and if we were going to bring on an affiliate. And I'll be honest, I've tried a lot of them, and they're just mostly salt and noodles. They just seem like it's some combination of salt and noodles, and they're just not good. And the meals we've had of yours, I'm actually really impressed with the quality. And I get why you say that sometimes that will just be breakfast or lunch out of the bag, because it really is that good. Like, I'm doing the same thing with your food. It is that good.
Well, yeah, it's phenomenal. Having tried them, there is no comparison in my opinion. It's
Thank you very
fantastic
much.
stuff.
So
Appreciate
yeah, I
it.
mean, that's our code, Stakeholder 15, the number one, the number five. That'll be live on our website. Obviously, we'll have a link to get people to your website. But what is that? What is that website, Branden?
Yeah, it's Vodes, VODES, preparedness at .com. So, or you can, if you got questions or thoughts or concerns or product ideas or whatever, you can email me at vodespreparedness at gmail.com. Check it out on Facebook. Yeah, and let me know what
And
you guys think.
you're doing all your own stuff right now, right? Like, if somebody sends you an email, it's you're your own minister of
That's me.
propaganda, emailing people back, right?
Yeah, I sign everyone. I do a thank you card in every single order, and I hand sign every single one. So yeah, everything is, yeah, a one man show. So if you want to reach out to me, votespreparedness at gmail.com, I will absolutely respond.
It really seems like, your boys have driven you to be not only more prepared for yourself and them, but kind of spreading that feeling of preparedness and accessibility, like you mentioned. How do you feel your preparedness has really taken hold and you're showing others how to do the same and survive?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've taken my preparedness seriously, and I don't like to think of it as like a scary thing or anything like that. I like to just think of it as preparing for anything else. I even use there's a niche of you're prepared for busy night. Maybe you just need to make a quick meal. It doesn't necessarily mean preparedness for, you know, an EMP like you guys talk about. It could be just preparedness for a busy weeknight of soccer games and baseball, and you need to make a quick meal. But yeah, I want to be able to just help people achieve their goals if they want to be prepared for the future, and a food storage I think is an incredible way to at least get your foot in the door when it comes to the preparedness community for sure.
That's awesome, and I'm looking forward to the new stuff coming out too. Like I said, I've tried everything you've got so far, and yeah, a little buffalo chicken mac and cheese, like, that's my jam. I can't wait. That
I'm
sounds
excited for
delicious.
that one.
Yeah, that one's coming for sure.
That's great. That's awesome. So I guess before we let you go, though, Brandon, I mean, do you have any questions for us? We really do appreciate you coming on. This is awesome. This is great, just for me understanding the science above and beyond, giving our listeners coupon code and stuff. But any questions for Chris and I before we let you go?
No, I mean, I appreciate you guys' time. I think this is awesome to be able to kind of network and talk to folks in the community that you know have connections and are able to kind of get the word out um, and can talk about it in relatable terms. So no, I really appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we try to avoid the doom and gloom as much as we can. And
Yeah,
I think it kind of shows with the amount of research that we put in and the guests we bring on, like you obviously know what you're talking about and are very successful at it. And we truly do appreciate you coming on and kind of letting us pick your brain a little bit about freeze drying and long term storage. So it is a fantastic interview.
awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys' time. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, we will see you all here next week. Again, new topic. But until then, remember you are your own stakeholder. We'll see you then.